It is our pleasure to be joined by the head football coach of the West Virginia Mountaineers. He has also taken quite the liking to giving me a bunch of shit every time he sees me in person. Neal Brown is in the house. What's going on, man?
Gabe, I'm good. I mean, here's the thing. It's sometimes it's an easy target. Like at media days when you wear Rolexes, it's an easy target.
Oh, man, you just can't hide it. You just can't hide it.
You can't hide money. And the other thing too is, I don't know if he told you, Teddy, but like the whole radio crew wore the same like shirts.
Ah, matching, huh? That's nice.
I did not wear the same shirt.
Gucci shirts across for the radio crew?
No, we just one other guy had a shirt on that also had like a floral pattern, and I was wearing just like a floral G4 golf shirt. It was a very reasonable shirt selection.
It looked coordinated. And I'm not even sure where you buy these shirts.
Honestly, I think that was a gift from my mother-in-law.
No, I appreciate you having me on. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay. You are one of my favorite guys when it comes to talking about the state of college football right now. And I know that this answer is probably going to go a lot of different directions, but what is it like being a head football coach right now in college football?
Is this what you want to talk about for the whole podcast? You've got to be able to adjust on the fly. You know, I'm talking about since March of 2020 is our whole business for so long was based on routine and a rhythm. And you knew what was, in January, you had the AFCA convention, you had official visits, first weekend was signing day, then you start your winter program. And this was the way it was. And now there's so many things that have changed in the last 2.5 years that there's no constants anymore. And so you've got to make plans. You got to still be able to plan and prepare, but you can't be rigid. And you've got to be able to go with the flow, and not only go with it, you can't be rattled. And you can't, whether it's conference realignment, whether it's name, image, likeness, whether it's a transfer, whatever it is, it's like you got to be able to attack it head on and cannot be rattled. And so I know that's a kind of a quick answer, but there's a lot of things that are happening right now in our business.
I think you're right. You have to, change is tough, and sometimes maybe it's not even for the better, but you have to embrace it, or at least give the impression that you've embraced it and you're going to own it, and you're going to try and make an advantage for your program as you move on. But are these things, because a lot of it's been made that this is for, the betterment of the student athlete. Do you think that these transfer portal, NIL stuff do you think that those are actually better for the players?
Well, I'll even take it back. Here's where we're at. We're in a huge phase of player empowerment, and it's a direct result of leadership in college football turning a total blind eye of the world changing. When the TV money got so big, an easy solution was just to share revenue. I mean, literally, we could stay on the really kind of the old model, share revenue, give the players a piece of it, which they deserve. And we wouldn't have this onslaught of just change that's happening. And so
it probably could have been avoided if you just let guys sign autographs.
Sell their jerseys.
It could have. Here's the thing: share revenue and get rid of the 3-year rule where you had to wait 3 years to play in the NFL. If those two things would have been adjusted, then we wouldn't be in the mess we're in right now. But that's hindsight, because we fell asleep at the wheel. Like we just, the world was changing, and college athletics, in particular college football, just did not change. And so here we are, we're in a period of time where the change is happening so fast that the people in charge are having a hard time keeping up. And so is it good for the players? Like, let's think about this. All right. So name, image, likeness. Is that good for the players? Absolutely. It is. But without boundaries, not sure. You know, I read an article not too long ago about Sebastian Telfair. If y'all remember,
Oh
Sebastian.
yeah, he played for the Oklahoma City Thunder for a little bit.
Yeah, and so Sebastian Telfair was the phenom, right? Comes right out like he signs this huge multi-million-dollar shoe deal at like 18 years old, and he was looking back in retrospect, and he said like that was one of the biggest mistakes he ever, or not mistakes, but one of the things that really stunted him because he didn't know how to handle it. He wasn't prepared how to handle that, that success, the money. And I get it. At 18, I wouldn't be able to handle that, and so name, image, likeness, does that help us? Yes, but there's gotta be some boundaries on it. And the issue with that is that's such a complicated issue. There's only one governing body that can really get it right, and that's Congress. And if you haven't been watching, it takes a little time to get anything done there. and so, is the transfer portal pro student athlete? I would say maybe one, it is. I think that we've got to really look hard at certain times of the year. It's not pro student athlete if it's open 365 because it doesn't help you overcome some things. But should they have the option? Yes, I think that's probably fair. The multiple year deal, that's hard. I don't know if that's best. I think the waiver process after one is a little, because every situation is not the exact same. So I don't want to be here and going, you should only be able to transfer once. There could be some extenuating circumstances, could be a coaching change. It could be an ill parent. It could be, but I think one's fair. I think the second one, I would agree with the waiver. Some of the other things like, I think those are real discussions about healthcare and some things like that. I think those are some real discussions that need to be had. I think a lot of this, and I think even Gabe talked about this at media days, is like there's got to be somebody in charge. And so, most people in their profession like have people that they're directly answer to. So for here, Shane Lyons, our athletic director, Gordon Gee is our president, and man, there's no gray area on who my bosses are. Well, who's the boss of college football? There's not one. So if you don't have leadership, if you don't have direction, if you don't have a commissioner that says, hey, this is what it is, this is the penalties, then what do you have? You got a bunch of independent leaders in conferences, and that's it. And I just think of any huge revenue business, like what other business doesn't have a leader? It doesn't have anybody that's in charge. I mean, I'm asking, do y'all have anybody think about it. I don't know of another major revenue generator like college football that doesn't have leadership.
I don't think that exists other than college football.
That's what I'm saying. Like like Amazon, they got a leader. They generate a lot of revenue. They got a leader. They got a CEO. They got a board. They've got there's a little bit of CEOs got to answer to people and things like that. I mean, but college football, we got nothing. There's no centralized leader, and until we figure that out, until we figure out the leadership structure, then we're going to continue to have issues.
So, and I know it's hard to predict the future, but right, with OU in Texas making the move to the SEC eventually, with USC and UCLA both going to be Big Ten schools, right? Like, you're a guy that always is forward thinking. Where do you think this ends up, man?
Well, I think that you're gonna see a conference structure that looks different. I can see it easily going to 4, maybe even 3. I think that at some point, I don't know what the time frame on it is, but there's going to be a clear division. whether that's 60 schools, whether that's 70 schools, whatever it is, there's going to be a clear division, and it's not going to be 131 Division I teams. Like the Division I structure is going to be different. But then it goes to, okay, again, it goes back to the leadership or the governance. Who governs those 60 or 70 schools? But it's definitely going to change. Everybody likes to throw out this like employee, and from a legal standpoint, like they're like the players are never going to be employees. But the model is going to be different than it is right now. It's not going to be, in my opinion, in the future. How many years, I don't know, but it's not going to be where, hey, it's a full scholarship and that's it. There's going to be, some revenue sharing at some point, I believe. And that's just me. To me, and sitting here in Morgantown, West Virginia, just saying, hey, I can see this happening in the future.
How's all this affected recruiting? Because used to, you had your, you had your areas that you hit, you kind of knew what your selling points were, but now with transfer situations, with NIL, with conference realignment happening right now, where does that leave like your recruiting, just like your plan moving forward on how you do things?
Well, I think that the first thing is you're no longer sitting there thinking 4 and 5 years in advance. You're building teams, and that's college basketball has probably been doing this for the last 2 years, maybe last year, but for sure this year in college football, that's going to be the model moving forward. We got 33 new scholarship players that came in our program this summer. And you add another 15 to 20 walk-ons, you're talking about, we've got close to 50 of our 120 players are going to didn't go through spring. That's, and so like it's challenging every, because you think about guys, when you all played, you had winter workouts, and that's where you really kind of grew your leadership, and you had some shared sacrifices. Then you went to spring ball, and that's really where you won a job. And then there'd be the rare late transfer or the rare true freshman that come in and make his way through fall camp, and they would play. But in winter and in spring ball, you really kind of grew your team. Then you went through summer workouts, got in shape for fall camp. That's a totally different model now. You think what I just said, 33, we got 33 new guys. And we're not, it's not like we're a unicorn in that, there's a bunch of teams that are just like us. And so now, your winter in your spring, it's not necessarily deciding jobs or deciding your leadership like it used to be. Your summer now is way more important. And then your fall camp, you got way more position battles in fall camp than you've ever had. And then from a recruiting standpoint, what it does is you've got this balancing act of, okay, is portal compared to high school recruiting. And then in high school recruiting, like how many of these developmental types do you need to invest in? And then your transfer portal, what's your niche? Because I think, every school's niche is going to be a little bit different. So what is your niche? And so the recruiting has completely changed. And the other thing about recruiting now is it used to be such area focused. And now what you're seeing more is more positionally focused because of the ability to transfer. And so you've got to have a really good relationship with your position players. And so you've got to start that 2 years in the recruiting process now, but it's completely changed. And then you won't have a recruit that does not ask about name, image, and likeness. There's not one guy that comes through my office that the kid or the guardian or the parent or the coach doesn't ask about name, image, likeness. And for us to act like kids aren't making decisions, it's partly because of that is a joke to me, because that's not the world we're living in. It comes up. Now, is it more important to some than others? Absolutely. But everybody's asking about it.
It's interesting. I feel like I could talk to you all day about this stuff, but I do want to talk about your football team a little bit, and most notably week 1, right? The Backyard Brawl is back, West Virginia, Pitt, and I'm sure you wish it was at home and not there in Pittsburgh, but just how cool is it to have that game back, and how cool is that you're starting your season that way?
Well, you talk about a game that means a lot to our fans. It's this game. I mean, we've got songs like just that our crowd, it doesn't matter. They'll break it out. I've heard them at Little League softball games, like break out songs about Pitt. I mean, so it's a legit rival. Like our fans are excited. They're fired up about this game, and we've had to educate our players, and I'm sure Pitt has too. It's been 11 years since this game was played. Um, we recruit from a large area, and so it's been fun to bring back some of the greats. Like talking to Mark Bulger a couple weeks ago about what this game. He's from Pitt and played at West Virginia, right? What this game means to him. Having a conversation with Jeff Hostetler a couple of days ago about his memories and getting him to share. Listen to Coach Neal talk about this game and how intense it was during his tenure. And so this is a game that, we used to be at West Virginia. We used to be one of the few schools that was kind of geographic outlier conference wise. Now that's changed, but we still are a little bit more east than most of the teams we play. And so I really feel strongly that we should play a regional rivalry. Now we have two in Virginia Tech and Pitt. I don't necessarily like playing two because now we're playing 11 Power Fives, and it's from a competitive standpoint, that's not what everybody else is doing. Where everybody else is playing two G5s and FCS, we're playing two Power Fives, and from a competitive standpoint, what we're doing is not the same as what other teams in our league are doing. But I think it's really important to play a regional rivalry. Like we played Virginia Tech here, which is another rival of ours, and in my office overlooks a stadium, so that's when I'm pointing, that's what I'm doing. But our field right here, that Saturday when we play Virginia Tech, electric. And that when we go up and play in Pittsburgh, I was going to say Heinz Field. I know it's not that anymore. I don't even know how to pronounce it.
Acrisure, is that right?
That's right.
Yeah. So whenever we go up there, our fans will have a big turnout, and that's going to be an electric atmosphere. And when they come back week 2 in 23, it's going to be electric. So it's a fun game. It's given us something to point to, really going back in all summer and during spring ball. We've really pointed to this game because you can't ease into it. Is like Pitt's going to be top 12, top 15 team in the country. They're defending ACC champions. They're going to be ready to go, and we better be at our best to have an opportunity to win there.
Quarterback's going to be a big factor for you guys this season. And, everyone knows you got the big transfer in, JT Daniels. What's the biggest key for him? And I think it's interesting, like how you said, almost 50 new guys. How hard is it for a new quarterback through the portal and a bunch of other guys coming in to try and get that chemistry and that leadership and stuff like that moving forward?
Well, we've been intentional this summer about working those things, more chemistry, more kind of shared sacrifices and things like that during the summer. So we've been intentional about that. This is not a new system to JT. So JT played in this system in his second year at USC. He knows Graham Harrell, our offensive coordinator. They have a relationship since then. He was able to study once he made his decision. He was able to study our system. He's been here since May, so knowing what to do is not going to be an issue. They've thrown a lot this summer, and so I think he'll have good enough timing. He's got to go into camp and win the job, and then the most important thing for him is staying healthy. If you look at his body of work, and people forget this, like his story, he goes to plays at one of the most prestigious high school programs in the country, starts as a freshman there, graduates an entire year early, like some of these basketball players do. He graduates the entire year early, ahead of his class, goes to USC and he's a starting quarterback at 17 years old at USC as a true freshman, which really should have been his high school senior year. They have a good year. I mean, a pretty good year. They go to bowl game. He wins the job going into year 2, tears an ACL first game, so misses that year, goes to Georgia. ACL takes a little bit longer, but then he starts the last 4 or 5 games of Georgia's the COVID year, goes and has a huge comeback win against Cincinnati in the Peach Bowl, wins the job, is the starter, is undefeated. He's never lost a game he started at Georgia. And so, and then he got hurt, so his deal has been when he's been healthy, he's played at a really high level, but he's got to stay healthy. And he knows that. And that's going to be the key for him this year.
And one of the main keys to keeping him healthy is the offensive line. And I have to ask you about it. Like the offensive tackle position in particular, I thought was a weakness for you guys last year, but you were playing young guys and getting baptized by fire last season with Yates, Milam. How do you feel about that group as a whole heading into the season?
So Milam, we switched to left tackle, and he started last year, our last 9 games as an 18-year-old, and this offensive line is the hardest position to play as a true freshman.
Ugh.
And tackle is the most difficult because you're on an island and you're playing against some of the freak athletes. You're talking about guys that are 6'3", 6'4", that are running 4.5, 4.6 40s, that 35 plus verticals. I mean, these are freak athletes. We're asking our offensive lineman the best. So you're asking a guy that is, in that 6'4" to 6'6" range, in 300 to 320 range, that most of them, if you went and played basketball, they'd be post-up centers. Okay. And so, and most defensive ends or edge rushers are small forward. Well, most coaches, basketball coaches, don't go say, all right, we're going to play man-to-man, and I want my center, my 5 guy, you got the 3 man-to-man. No coach is going to ask you to do that. But in football, you're essentially asking the 5, which is a tackle, center in basketball, to go block an edge guy that's a small forward that we're going to play on the perimeter in basketball. He's got to block him. That's a tough match. And so he went and did, I think if you look at it, it's all about the lens you look through it. If you're looking at how Wyatt played last year, he played right tackle last year. If you look at it through the lens that he was 18 years old and he went to high school here in West Virginia and he started 9 games. That was pretty impressive what he did. Okay. If you look at through the lens of, did he make some mistakes? Did he get beat some? Yeah. Okay. That's fair. But I'll say this, Wyatt Milam be an NFL player? He's a kid, he'll make an all-conference team this year. And so, the least of my concerns is how Wyatt Milam's going to play at left tackle. At left tackle, Wyatt Milam's going to be an NFL player. I know you like our center, Zach Frazier, a lot, and feel really good. We got to secure the right tackle spot. We're going to have a competition there. Feel like we've got 2 good candidates. Brandon Yates has started a lot of games for us. Jaquay Hubbard, Brandon was injured a little bit in the spring. Jaquay Hubbard's really came on. He's got really good length. We got a solid interior backup in Jordan White. So we feel good about 7 guys. We got to get a little depth here in fall camp, but that's a group now across the board that started a lot of football games. And we've had to build this. When we got here, this offensive line was not the room was not in good shape. We had very few guys that were capable of playing at the level that you need to play at in this league. And we made the decision, we went young. In 19, we were below average, far below average. In 20, we were below average, but improved. Last year, we were about average. And what I mean by that is when we play against people that were average to below average, we won those battles. When we played against people above average, we usually lost those battles. And so now the challenge is we got to play above average. For us to take the next step offensively, for us to take the next step as a team, is our offensive line has got to play above average. And they have the experience and the talent. And so we're more than capable, but you got to go out and do it.
Yeah. And whenever you look at the conference, as you kind of talked about that progression, the average has changed. Whenever you look at these defenses in this conference, Iowa State, what they've done, what Baylor's now done, Oklahoma State and the defensive line that they've had and what they have coming back. Oklahoma is about to take a big step forward. What do you think about the way that this conference has kind of morphed and changed over the years?
Yeah, I think that a lot of times we start talking about, everything's about conferences right now, right? And let's not get confused about the number of dollars that you're bringing in because of TV, because your television market, and then actually what happens on the field. Like those are two totally different aspects. So everybody says, oh, the SEC and Big Ten, because they're getting these future contracts. Well, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah. Are they going to earn some more money than everybody else? Yeah, it looks like it. But is their product better than what we're putting out? Because you look at it, like our league defensively, people are getting after people's ass. I mean, you look at like the last 2 years, you'll look at the stats and then look at the bowl games when the Big 12 is playing against some of these other teams, and they're handling them pretty well. And this perception that's been out there forever, because I was an offensive coordinator at Texas Tech 10, 11, and 12. And so during that time, this league defensively, outside of one or two programs, Oklahoma was playing good defense. Texas was up and down, but there wasn't a whole lot of really good defense being played. Like we've done a 180. Like you mentioned that. Look at Oklahoma State the last 3 years defensively. Look at Baylor last year. Oklahoma's been much improved. Iowa State's changed how teams in the NFL play defense because they were innovative. Like there are some teams playing defense at an extremely high level.
And you guys, right? I mean, that 2020 defense of y'all's was
the last 2 years. Yeah, the last 2 years. Like we've played defense at a high level, and we'll continue to do that. But this league on the field, like you can talk about revenue and all that kind of whatever you want to talk about. But on the field, the quality of play is extremely high. Our league hurts ourselves because we all play everybody, and there's just not a huge difference between the whole league. And so because we're playing 9 conference games, because there's some parity where there's not a huge difference, then we end up beating up on each other a little bit.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Now there are a lot of OU fans that listen to this podcast, believe it or not, Neal, and
they like you guys.
Apparently,
sometimes
sometimes that's the best way to answer that. But what have you had any? I know that back when you were the coordinator at Tech, Venables was the defensive coordinator there at OU. But what'd you think of that hire for Oklahoma, and just what do you kind of think of Venables and just how his style could translate to being a head coach?
Well, so my reaction to that was, man, I was hoping they wouldn't hire somebody as good. But in my head, I knew this is Joe C is as good as anybody in the business. And when that job came open, I don't know, he probably was surprised. But you look at who he's hired, not only in football, but you look across the board in every sport, it's really impressive. And I mean this, like, I think he's as impressive to me as a administrator as anybody in college athletics. And that was the perfect guy. I actually told my wife, Lincoln and I are friends, and so I forget where I was, and that came out, and Brooke and I, my wife, were riding the car. She said something about Lincoln leaving, and she said something about, who do you think they'll hire? And I said, well, my first call would be to Venables. I hope they don't, but that would be my first call. And so I just think that he's impressive to me. Like, I think he's you just talk from a professional standpoint. I got to know him when I was a coordinator at Tech and recruiting Dallas area, and he recruited the Dallas area. And then when I was the head coach at Troy, made some trips to Clemson, and so got to know him a little bit. We had the safeties coach at Oklahoma now, Brandon Hall. Brandon worked for us at Troy and did a great job. And he was with Brent for a long time, and got to really know how he worked. And so for me, I've got a ton of respect for him. He's got great energy. He's a great recruiter. one of the top defensive minds in the country. He's got the rare ability to be able to coach kids hard and they still like him. That's really difficult. It's a really difficult balance. There's like there's a big jump. Anybody, even somebody that's been a high level, elite level coordinator for as long as he is, there's always a little bit of a getting used to being the head coach. But he's been around phenomenal people. There's probably no coach that's been hired in the last 20 years that's more ready than he is. And so I think it's a great hire. He'll do really, really well there. That's my pro OU statement.
I like it.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah.
I knew. Hey, listen, all you listeners, before we get on here, I said, all right. I said, I'm game as long as it's not a OU infomercial. So like, it's but I do think I like Venables a lot. I think he's gonna do a really good job. And that's kind of how I see it.
Well, I was going to jump back to something on this next question, and you kind of tied something into it there whenever you were talking about Venables, and you said that, he's able to coach his players hard and, they still like him. Well, they don't at first, right? They hate him at first because of how hard.
That's personal experience.
That's personal experience. It takes a while to climb out of that hole of misery. Okay. So whenever you look at like the transfer stuff that we were talking about earlier, like how hard have you noticed a difference in development? Like, because there used to be, you come in your red shirt, and then, freshman, sophomore, you're kind of developmental. And then as a junior, finally everything clicks. You earn your way on the field. And by that time, you understand the scheme, you understand the staff, like you understand the game, you've gathered a bunch of experience, and you're kind of off on your way. And now it feels like you start off early. If you're not on the field, you start looking around, maybe I'll go somewhere else and try and learn a new scheme. And how much work is there on yourself, like on the actual player? Or is it just going around to a place where they like what I can do right now and I can be plugged into a system?
Retention has to be at the forefront, and you have to understand that you're not going to keep them all. And so you got to focus on the ones that are the best fit for your program and the guys that are going to be able to fit your culture and be able to play the best for you on the field. And
is there pressure to play guys before they're ready, maybe?
So here's the thing. Like, I don't think you can play them before you're ready because, and I'm talking about in major roles, but you got to figure out roles for guys that you want to have a future in your program. You got to find roles for them early on. And maybe that's not to be a starter. Maybe that's not to play in the fourth quarter, but you got to find roles that keeps them engaged. And that's something that is a daily topic here is, okay, hey, retention, remember, like that was probably never a word that was used in college football until the last 3 years, but you got to focus on it. The days where you redshirt a big group of guys, that's over. That's over. You're going to see O lineman and D lineman, interior D lineman and O lineman. That's going to be the main group that's redshirt, and everybody else is going to have to figure out a role to play. And whether it's special teams or sub packages on defense or using different personnel groupings on offense to get some guys in, like, you have to think that way. And I think the other thing too is like how you coach on the field is how you coach on the field. But how you handle yourself off the field, I think most coaches, the ones that are doing it at a high level, have had to adjust because you've had to listen more. You had to keep your ears open. You had to work the support areas a little bit more, just because. And you got to be real conscious of bringing kids back. If you coach them, like, you can't let anybody below your standards because you're really letting them down and you lose your whole culture of your program. But if you got to make corrections, if you got to discipline somebody and you want them to stay around, you want to retain them, man, you got to bring them back. And you got to have a real pulse on everything that's going on.
Yeah, that's interesting. All right, one more and we'll let you get out of here, man. We've already kept you way too long. There's this sense out there that you're on the hot seat this season, right? Do you think those people know that you signed an extension after 2020? Do you think they have any idea?
I don't know. I mean, it's open records. You can find it. You can find it. Here's what
do you see that stuff? Like, does that affect you in any way? Because I mean, clearly, you know, all of that stuff is out there. You're exposed to all of it. Does that?
I see it. Like, let's not like, I see it. I don't feel any of that from anybody that matters. You know, I think sometimes it's lazy. I don't know if journalism is the right word, but you know, not doing your research. You know, I do. I have a 6-year contract. It just flipped over. I mean, we got 5 years left on it. You know, and this is the way I think about it. So the question is, does it bother me? The answer would be no. And as mature, like just thinking about things in a different manner is like, what's your measure of success? Well, I think like that's something that's really kind of a deep question. Like, what's your measure of success? And so like my measure for success is kind of with an infinite mindset. And what I mean by that is to me is it's leaving a place, you know, infrastructure wise, facility wise, program, people better than you found it. And so that to me is, and I feel really good about what we've been able to do. And like we've been average. You know, the record's exactly down the middle. It is what it is. Like, I'm not trying to hide from that. But there's been some growth, you know, and we lost a couple games before our bye week last year that we probably shouldn't have lost. But we haven't, you know, from where we've been in the program for the 3 years, like other than that, there's not a whole lot of games that could have gone either way, Gabe. And so when I look at kind of where we've been doing here for 3 years and through a pandemic, through transfer portal, all that kind of stuff, is our facilities are much improved now. We went from 9 or 10 in every aspect of the Big 12 to now, from a facility standpoint, outside of our press box and premium seating within our stadium, we're probably in the top 3 or 4. More importantly, the infrastructure of our program, and what I mean is our support areas, is we're 9 or 10 again in everything from a support area standpoint. Now we're in the top, you know, 3 or 4. We're not 1, but what I mean by that is we've got a full-time sports psychologist that's in the building every day. You know, our academic staff is grown, and especially with learning, you know, people that learning specialists. We've got 2 nutritionists now to serve our program. We've got in the process of hiring an executive chef. We've got a full athletic training staff. We've got a full strength staff. We've got all these recovery opportunities for our student athletes. So the infrastructure in our program after 3 years is just now at a point where we can be considered in the top half of our league for these things, right? And so now it's about going out and being and getting more wins, you know. So do I hear that? Yeah, I hear it. Is it something that keeps me up at night? No. I promise you there's more internal pressure than there is external pressure at all times. But the way I look at it is, again, with that infinite mindset, is, hey, we're going to leave things better than we found it, and have there's not a question in my mind that that's going to be the case.
Should hire Gabe as a wardrobe specialist. Floral shirts and Rolexes for everyone.
Yeah. Hey, you got the Oak City going, huh?
Yeah. Let me know if you want some Oklahoma City gear. I can get you as much as you need, man.
No, I just give me good Thunder tickets next time I come in town for softball. That's all I need.
Hey, you have my word. I can make that happen. Neal, you're the man. Appreciate the time, and hey, we'll see you November 12th.
Guys, appreciate it, man. Y'all have a good one.